I never thought I'd be in a position where I might be responsible for my own mother being homeless. But here I am, and I'm genuinely not sure if I did the right thing anymore. For context, my relationship with my mom has always been complicated. My dad left when I was 3 and she raised me alone. She worked hard, but she was also irresponsible with money, constantly in debt, borrowing from friends, taking out payday loans, and generally living beyond her means. Growing up, I remember our utilities being shut off regularly and having to move apartments in the middle of the night to avoid landlords. When I turned 18, she tried to open credit cards in my name. I found out and put a freeze on my credit, which caused a huge fight. For years afterward, our relationship was strained but civil. I moved several states away for college, built my own life, and kept minimal contact, usually just holiday calls and occasional texts. About 6 months ago, I got a frantic call from my mom. She was sobbing, saying she was about to lose everything and needed my help. This wasn't unusual. Financial emergencies were her specialty, but she sounded genuinely desperate this time. I asked what happened, and she explained that she'd fallen behind on her mortgage payments and was facing foreclosure on her house. She'd also been sued by several creditors and was afraid they'd take the house, even if she caught up on the mortgage. "I need you to come home," she begged. "Just for a week or so. Please, I can't face this alone." Against my better judgment, I took a week off work and flew back to my hometown. When I arrived, my mom seemed strangely relieved. Not just to see me, but as if some bigger problem had been solved. The next morning, she handed me a stack of papers. "What's this?" I asked. "Just some documents the lawyer put together," she said vaguely. "Nothing to worry about." I started looking through them and my blood ran cold. They were property transfer documents for her house, into my name, already executed and filed with the county. "Mom," I said slowly, "what did you do?" She had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. "I had to protect the house from creditors. They can't take it if it's not in my name anymore." "So you put it in my name? Without asking me?" "I knew you wouldn't say no to your own mother," she said, as if that made it okay. I was speechless. The documents were dated 3 months earlier. She'd transferred ownership of a house to me long before calling me home. "How did you even do this? I never signed anything." She waved her hand dismissively. "Remember those scholarship papers I asked you to sign last Christmas? You never read what you sign. It's a bad habit, sweetie." I felt sick. She had tricked me into signing property transfer documents by pretending they were related to a scholarship she'd found for me. I hadn't even been in college for years. "Here's the plan," she continued, oblivious to my horror. "The house is in your name now, so they can't touch it. You just need to pay the mortgage for a few years until my debts clear up, and then we can transfer it back." "Pay the mortgage?" I repeated. "Mom, I live in another state. I have my own rent to pay, my own life." "It's only $1,800 a month," she said, as if that was nothing. "You make good money now, and it's not like I'm asking you to move back. I'll still live here." I spent the next few hours in a daze trying to process what she'd done. She had fraudulently transferred her house to me to avoid creditors, and now expected me to pay the mortgage while she continued living there, all without ever discussing it with me first. After some quick research, I learned that what she'd done wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. It's called a fraudulent conveyance, and both of us could potentially face serious legal consequences. She had put me at significant financial and legal risk without my knowledge or consent. I contacted a lawyer immediately who confirmed my fears. If I kept the house knowing it was transferred to defraud creditors, I could be complicit in the fraud. I could face lawsuits from her creditors, potential criminal charges, and severe damage to my credit and reputation. The lawyer advised me of my options. I could try to void the transfer, complicated and potentially still risky, or I could sell the house, pay off the mortgage and her legitimate debts, and walk away legally clean. I chose the second option. I told my mom my decision, and she went ballistic. She screamed, cried, and threatened to tell everyone what a terrible daughter I was. But my mind was made up. I couldn't risk my future because of her poor decisions and deception. The house sold quickly. The market in her area was hot. After paying off the mortgage, her outstanding tax liens, and some of her most pressing legitimate debts, There was about $30,000 left. I put this money in an account for her to use for housing. My mom refused to leave when the new owners were ready to take possession. I had to be there on the final day with the real estate agent, watching as she was essentially forced out of her home, crying and calling me every horrible name imaginable. She's now staying with a cousin and has told everyone in the family that I stole her house and left her homeless. My phone has been blowing up with messages from relatives saying I'm a monster who threw my own mother onto the street. Only a few family members have bothered to hear my side of the story. The $30,000 I set aside would be enough for her to rent a decent apartment for at least a couple of years, but she's refusing to touch it, saying it's blood money. Instead, she's relying on family members' couches and continuing to tell anyone who will listen that I ruined her life. I know I did what I had to do legally to protect myself, but watching my mother cry as she packed her things made me question everything. She raised me alone, and despite her flaws, I know she loves me. But she also put me in an impossible position. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for selling the house my mom secretly transferred into my name, effectively making her homeless? Edit. Thank you for all the responses. I want to address a few common questions. Yes, I spoke with my mom before selling and explained why I had to do it. I offered to help her find an apartment with the proceeds, but she refused to discuss any solution that involved her losing her house. For those asking about fraud charges, my lawyer said that by selling the house and using the proceeds to pay legitimate debts, I've mitigated most of the legal risk for both of us. If I had kept the house, both my mom and I could have faced fraud charges. Some have asked why I didn't just transfer the house back to her. According to my lawyer, once I became aware of the fraudulent transfer, simply giving it back wouldn't shield either of us from legal consequences. The creditors could still come after both of us. Regarding the $30,000, I've set up the account so she can access it herself. I'm not controlling the money. She's choosing not to use it as a way to maintain that I've wronged her. Update. It's been about 2 months since everything happened. My mom stayed with my cousin for a few weeks, then with an aunt. She finally contacted me last week, not to apologize, but to ask if the money was still available. Apparently, family hospitality has its limits. She's now renting a small apartment. She still tells people I stole her house, but has stopped calling me directly to yell at me. Some family members have started to understand my side after learning more details about what she did. I'm still dealing with some financial cleanup. Her creditors did come after me for a few debts, but my lawyer has been handling it. I've spent about $5,000 in legal fees protecting myself from the mess she created. I don't know if our relationship will ever recover. Part of me hopes that someday she'll understand that what she did was wrong, but I'm not holding my breath. For now, I'm focusing on moving forward and establishing healthier boundaries. Am I the a-hole?